There is a big rainforest just beyond the village, John Scanlon. What is it, the CITES Treaty?
Well, the CITES Treaty regulates international trade in wildlife, both plants and animals, to make sure that that trade doesn't threaten their survival in the wild.
Does your treaty deal with poaching?
Yes, it deals with poaching when the poached animal or the plant that's been taken enters international trade. So we work very closely with local people and governments to make sure we can help manage it and
the
stop it.
The animal that's being poached is the pygmy rhino. It's a boar-like creature. It resembles a rhinoceros because it's got a horn. And Hassan Fatah, you're the editor of the Daily Grail, a paper in nearby Euphoria. There's a rumor going round that the crushed horn of the pygmy rhino is, when injected into the veins, will actually reverse the growth of cancer in terminally ill patients. And that obviously has driven up the market for this creature's horn.
It's a great story, especially because it's going to impact a lot of the community. There's money flowing, and there's illicit flows of money that are flowing.
It's illicit, but sometimes they don't mind. They're very poor, Henry Puna. They certainly are benefiting from it. Julia, is the wider world benefiting from the loss of the pygmy rhino?
Absolutely not. When it finds out, the wider world should get very, very upset.
Maybe they will find out from Hassan's story. Of course, if you publish this story about the rumor that the pygmy rhino horn cures cancer, there are going to be some people so desperate
that they'll start landing on the island.
They will. They'll pay the poachers even more.
Absolutely.
You publish the story?
You publish the story, and you also are careful in not sensationalizing it. That's the most important part.
Well, the sensation is in the story, isn't it? That people believe a rumor.
Yes, but it's in the story also that you run the risk of wiping out an entire species of animal.
There are two stories.
Indeed.
That's why it's such a great story for you.
Absolutely. It sells newspapers.
Jacqueline McGlade, you're head of a major agency, environmental agency. Is it important to authoritatively refute this rumor?
I think we have to go and check it out. I think we have to be on the ground and take a more broad view. I mean, I don't believe everything I read, and I'm sure that our general citizenry would take a lot of what's written in the newspapers with a pinch of salt. So I would want to send a team down there on the ground. I'd want them in the village, understanding why the problem is there, and I'd want to be in the forest as well.
I guess you'll, before you find out the properties of this crushed pygmy rhino horn, you'll need to get a pygmy rhino.
Indeed.
You prepare a report that goes to Jacqueline McGlade, and it says with absolute scientific certainty that there are no properties relevant in any way to cancer curing. Would you want to give that wide publicity?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that my job entails is facing up to even disappointment in the public. You know, the hopes and aspirations of people sometimes need to be dashed by science, and that would be a role that I think my agency should take in this particular point.
You take a look at the appendix, and you discover that there is one extraordinary property. When this crushed rhino horn is sniffed or rolled with tobacco and smoked, it does have the most extraordinary aphrodisiac effect. People feel erotic sensations that have never been known before. Are you going to publish the appendix?
As a scientist, I would want to set up the hypothesis. I'd need to test it myself, of course. True authentication.
So do you publish the appendix or not? Knowing that when you publish the appendix, what's going to happen, John Scanlon?
Well, demand will go up and the species will be exploited at large.
There are 300 left. Hassan, if you get hold of the appendix, what's your headline? No cure for cancer from pygmy rhino, or is it amazing sex sensations?
Oh, no, certainly amazing sex sensations.
Amazing sex.
And then the next thing would be about Kim Kardashian coming to visit. So.
Do we captively breed? How are we going to manage this? Because demand for a substance like that is not going to go away.
And speaking of Russian oligarchs, Sergio?
Nobody yet asked the opinion of the rhino.
Sorry.
Nobody yet asked the rhino his opinion.
No, they
About
haven't.
what
We
is
don't.
happening.
Dr. Dolittle isn't part of our team, but you never know. The rhino is diminishing rapidly. There are only 300 estimated at the moment.
Yeah, but there's another way out.
Which way is that?
Well, if this is real, and if the rhino horn really has these properties, you just get one of them, you analyze it, you get what the substance is, and then you go to an investment fund and get the money to produce it industrially.
Right.
So it only works because there are no properties of the rhino. It's all mythical. If it were real, there would be a solution.
And since the belief in cancer reduction was hypothetical, but the aphrodisiac property is real, it could be replicated, and everyone could then have these sexual sensations.
If it's a reality, if it's a belief, then there's no way out.
Is that possible, David Lodge?
To synthesize the compound?
Yes.
It should be possible. It may not be easy, it may not be cheap, but it would certainly be the first line of exploration.
Marcelo Andrade, you're a businessman. Does this sound a proposition worth investing in?
It does, but one would need information to understand what are the technological barriers of synthesizing such a substance. To my knowledge, the pharmaceutical industry can easily synthesize the effect of one molecule active at a time. If the effect comes from the combination of more than one, then there's a problem to synthesizing it. So the risk of bringing out to the public something like that and creating demand is high, because then if you can't supply the demand, it will end up in slaughter.
What would it take for the people living there, near to the forest, to perhaps not kill every rhino, but to actually try to take care of them, to safeguard them, maybe to enhance the population, maybe to go into non-lethal killing and
Maybe
actually to just
to breed
harvest,
them. Would you
to
like
breed
to breed
them,
these
exactly,
amazing animals
and to share the profits?
Cut their horns off carefully and scientifically and painlessly, and maybe that's the way forward.
But we have a situation where we have a market-based opportunity to both save the rhino now and to advance the welfare of the people who live in the area. Because the world is interested in those rhinos. They weren't probably very interested economically in them before, but now there's a huge interest. So that area can be a reserve that can protect those 300 pygmy rhinos.
So breed the pygmy rhinos?
Breed the pygmy rhinos, do a couple of eco-lodges, get into your newspaper that this is the most wonderful place to come and look at the rhinos, not cut their horns off, and make a lot of money for the people who live in the
place
forest.
to take the pygmy rhino horn in whatever fashion. Is this going to take the pygmy rhino off your list?
Well, it could
Breeding,
move
there
on.
are thousands of them now.
Yes, well, it could go onto another list and say the population numbers have been bred up. We no longer need cows in this community. We've got these pygmy rhino. It's much more valuable. We're going to protect the forest. We're going to grow the pygmy rhino.